Let's go back. Way back. Back into time.
Done. I win.
Cheryl, it's not a race.
That's what losers say.
What is that?
The truth. Every time a new baby is born, the Federal Reserve issues a secret birth certificate printed by a company called the American Bank. That way, the government can use people as currency to back the debt they have with the World Economic Forum, which owns the central banks of every nation on Earth. But the WEF is just a front for the Council on Foreign Relations, which masterminded the 9/11 attacks as a pretext to invade Iraq, take the oil, and install fast food chains to make people slow, fat, and easily abductable by the shape-shifting reptilian aliens it works with. Now, back in the 30s, FDR made a deal with these reptilians to exchange people for technology. That was the basis of the New Deal. But ever since, they've been slowly replacing all the world leaders to create a nuclear holocaust to make global warming real for their takeover. That's how they made up the Cold War, by sending Leica to space to fight Neil Armstrong while Kubrick was faking the moon landing. Now they're using satellite waves, contrails, and measles vaccines as mind control, and fluoridating the water to keep people's gold fillings intact so they can be sent back to, you guessed it, the Federal Reserve, where all the gold and birth certificates are stored by the real puppet master, the world monarch, who is himself only the servant of the all-seeing eye who controls everything in the world.
Well, it's by far humans, actually. They're not off-world, they're on-world. Many years ago, when the reptilian race reasserted itself and said to what was to become the ruling elite, we'll do a deal with you. This is the magic that we'll give you. And this is the power we'll give you. But in return for that, this is what we want. They sort of led the agenda, and it's the last 10-15 years the human elite have begun to split from their so-called overlords, and this is what's led to a lot of infighting. I would put my hand on my heart and say to you, it's Draco Reptilians, but it's majoritively now a satanic group of the Illuminati who are hell-bent on holding the planet in a way that gives them absolute superior power. First of all, the reptiles want to remain the status quo. They want to, doesn't matter what the technology on the earth is, no matter what your religion is, as long as you are a subservient race, the reptiles are fine with that. So they don't care if you can do this and do that. As long as they have ultimate control over you, they don't care. You can be seen to be evolving or developing, as long as you don't throw them off. So that is their goal. There are a key number of human groups who have decided that it is time to end that dominance. But they can't do it by force on the planet. But they have used force from space. So physical force has been used, and will continue to be used. And the key outcome will be, people don't understand this. I'm probably very pedantic, but I refer to Earth humans and humans. Because if you are an Earth human, that means you have an Earth human soul. So you have a human body, but you have a human soul. That is a soul that's been recycled on Earth for ages. But you could have a human body, but have an alien human soul. So you could be Lyran, you could be Palladian, or you could be Syrian, which are the three purest human groups. But you're still not human in Earth human times, but you are to the greater human. So we have three key players. Lyran, which is the purest of the human group, and then you've got the group that split to the Cyrus, and then you've got the Palladians. The Palladians actually are human. incredibly warlike. And people don't understand this. They think that we're Palladians are actually incredibly warlike. And remember, when the Palladians came here, there wasn't a single creature that could contain their frequency except the dolphins. The dolphin was the only creature whose body was capable of maintaining the frequency of the Palladians, and that's why Palladian people are absolutely connected to the water and to dolphins. And that is why lots of children will want to go to play with the dolphins. And did you know in America that it is illegal for any American citizen to have a contact with a dolphin unless it is through an organization? Because the elite know. And it is illegal in America for, if you went down to the beach and you saw a dolphin and you touched it, you could be arrested. Because the elite know. But you have, that's why there are groups in America, organizations, very profitable, and you can send your kid and you pay lots of thousands of dollars and you can go and swim with the dolphins. It's allowed to do that. But they are always infiltrated by CIA or NSA because they know what's going on. That's why there's so many oil spills. That's why they want to kill dolphins, because of that. So the Palladian group has a very big future on this planet. So have the Lyrians. So have Syrians. And the Mantids have an important part to play. So those are the key players in the future. You'll notice that there's one group that's missed out there, which is the Reptilian group. That's Mars. Consciousness expanded, and the dominant life form on the planet in a non-physical form was the jinn. And when human expansion of its consciousness took place, the jinn were forced out of the third dimension, but not quite into the fourth. So they inhabited the space between the third and the fourth. As a result of that, they absolutely hated humanity. They are related to the reptilians. The reptilians were working with humans, and the reptilians did not allow the jinn to take reprisal actions against the humans. Because this jinn or Velon exists between the third and the fourth dimension, they're accessible from the third, and so the reptilians trained certain members of what we call the Illuminati to have the power to conjure or bring forth these creatures, and they use them predominantly to attach to humans, humans that they are very interested in. And so this is part of the magic that they can pull through. In the Western world, we really think of elves, fairies, goblins, and jinn. We don't understand it. But in the Eastern world, the Quran not only talks about them, but how to get rid of them. And if we think about the stories we have of Aladdin and the lamp, and the word genie is just simply jinn, but unfortunately in the West we're forgetting our learning. Yes, very much so. Very much so. Wouldn't begin to discuss a UFO. To them it would be a demon in the sky. But the Iranian military would know it was a UFO. So it's just the way it's handled. And she had a complete reptilian soul. And in height she was 5 foot, about 5'5", 5'5.5". And when we got back, and she was absolutely drenched in sweat, and she came up to give me a hug because she was scared, and where her head should have come up to here, her head was up here, and the first thing I did was look down to say, have you still got your shoes on? And she'd taken her shoes off, and I had taken my shoes off. And so what we did from that point on, we put a chart up against the wall, and every sort of 4 or 5 hours we'd stand her against it and mark it. I still got the chart, I kept it, and she increased about 3 inches. Now, modern science can't accept that. Modern science could not and would not accept it. The reality is that she had genetics in her body, and her body was attempting to return to its normal size, which would have been, God knows, 8, 9, 10 feet, something like that. But in a human body, you restrain, you can't do that. But it had enough genetics in it to allow that to change. And I personally witnessed over a 1 week period 2 spikes where she put on 2.5 inches and then went back down to normal, and then again, which meant 2 abductions, 2 takes in a 1 week period. And she was the one that said to me quite clearly, brother she's seen her brother's back completely morph into scales. I fully accept it, and I have no problem with it. It's exactly what I would expect, because how can you dominate a population unless you look like them? You have to look like them, because they won't accept you otherwise. Well, they would in the old days, because they would be your gods.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely fine. But humanity has moved on now. It can't accept that. But it can accept to be told what to do by people that look like them. Well, first of all, let me say that I have the highest regard, he's passed on now, but for Zachariah Sitchin. I think he was an excellent academic. And he did genuinely interpret the tablets correctly.
Right.
What I'm suggesting is that the tablets were planted, and the information on those tablets, or some of those tablets, was actually inaccurate. The long-term plan for those who would rule us would be for us to accept any particular type of alien as our creators. And because if you look on an alien force as a god force, you are then very, very, very beholden to that creature, and you feel that you are inferior to that creature. And so I was trying to alert people to the fact that this material found in, I don't know which level of the mound that they were found in, is actually inaccurate and has been planted to make people think that the Anunnaki created humanity. What I've always said is that what they did was alter us. Humanity was already existent upon the earth, but it was altered. The people generally think of the Pleiadians as the good guys, and the Reptilians as the bad guys. I mean, what I would say is that the Pleiadians are particularly warlike. They are far more benevolent to humanity. Pleiadians dislike the fact that humans have been manipulated, that humans don't have the full information at their fingertips to make a choice. So the Pleiadians are a race of people who have off and on fought reptilian groups and have aligned themselves with other alien forces who are against the reptile forces. And the Pleiadians have for some considerable time played a beneficial effect upon humanity on Earth. Taking out the evolutionary side of it, because obviously people in a hot country have pigmentation of the skin black. In terms of genetics of alien mixing, the sad thing is that racism springs from the reptilians. That's exactly like so many things done, being territorial, wanting wars, being greedy, arrogant. That all comes from values that the reptilians have given humanity. And white was always seen as the superior colour. So the Lord Reptile was white. All the ruling elite reptilians of that particular group, the Draco group, are white, almost albino, because they have red eyes. So therefore white became the ruling colour, and in ceremonies the non-white reptiles will wear white sashes across their bodies. Sometimes they are just one sash, sometimes it's a cross sash. Therefore they were always going to work with the white races, because that was the way they had it, and because they felt that way when they were putting the control implants, and I don't mean a physical implant, into humans' minds. They did not work with the black races. They worked with the white races, with the result now that it is very hard for a reptilian or what have you to take control or mind control of a black person, because they do not have the access codes to a black person in the same way they have to a Caucasian, simply because when they were doing their dumbing down and their altering of the human mind, they left the black races alone. However, they did make contact with a number of black races, and One of them is the Zulu tribe. They met with the Zulu tribe and imparted the warlike strength to them. And that is why the Zulus were absolutely unbeatable for their own time. And that's why they gave the whites such a hard battle, because they had the values given to them from their chiefs who had been in contact. But when they made contact with them, they didn't do it in the same way they did with the white people. They wanted them to be a powerful race. And then you've got people who are mixtures, such as in South America. Again, they would be seen as white blood. I'm very concerned with any organizations that almost create a guru or a godlike stance. I would counsel people to totally ignore anything coming from that particular mouthpiece. You see, I never believed all this New Age rubbish. I mean, there was a lot of New Age rubbish that was put out. And some of it was very well meant, and some of it was actually designed to skew the argument. It definitely peaked 2 to 3 days either side of that critical date. And you know, I went on Avalon and I talked about the CERN, the Hadron Collider, and how that didn't work. So it's a long drawn out end game, but the bad guys have the ability to hurt and cause an awful lot of pain. The question is, how much will they be allowed to make? An attempt by the Americans to form a one world government, an attempt by the Americans to have martial law, attempt to try to either chip people or massively kill people. It's got to be played out very quickly. I also expect, if that doesn't work directly, a false alien invasion or a false epidemic. So I think all the big things have got to be played, because 2016 is the final chance they have. They get no more resources coming through, and they're on this earth, they're trapped on this earth. They have to create their life for themselves. So between now and 2016, I'm surprised Obama hasn't done more. No, because I don't believe in them. If there was a talk some time ago that the poles shifting and this happening, I can honestly tell you, if the poles shifted, half the population of the world would be wiped out. If the poles actually changed and the earth flipped over, or the ice moved one way, you'd have very little humanity left. Magnetic north is changing. That is definitely changing. But that does change. 700,000 years ago, there was a complete polarity shift.
Right.
So North Pole was south and south was north. That was 700,000 years ago. That's different from a movement on your axis in terms of flipping the whole earth around.
Yeah.
Americans have many hundreds of thousands or millions of rounds of dum-dum bullets with the sole intention of arming elite units of troops and then causing as much death as they can. Passive resistance is actually attempting to get into the minds of those individual soldiers and showing them the consequences of their actions, and showing them that there is an alternative, and then they will go on with that as they will. I've always made it clear everywhere that I don't say that people need to create violence to prevent this. And a lot of people cannot understand that, because even people who are awake, they live in a physical world and they don't understand the full importance of the ability to change a physical situation by your own mental thought, your own mental processes, linked into your soul. What is happening and will continue to happen is the American military will thwart the attempts being made to basically detonate a nuclear bomb or to bring some form of agreement around. So key elements, and that's why we saw Obama get rid of 3 of his top generals very recently, because they refused to detonate a nuclear bomb or to at least move a nuclear bomb. But that's not the first time that's happened. Then there's over a year ago the situation with Clinton, not Mr. Clinton, but Hillary Clinton, which I spoke on my long about. And I think that every individual person has to be aware of what is happening. And people don't understand that the consciousness level of an individual, when matched with many, many, many thousands of individuals, can actually change reality.
Oh, yeah.
And I keep saying to people, you don't have to get the gun and barricade yourself in, because that's what a lot of these questions are about. What do I have to do? And they don't want people to go out there and put themselves in danger, because then you are fighting fire with fire, and that's not going to work. When humanity was first kicked off, very, very few people remembered who they were. Now we are 2013, and there are quite a lot of people over the planet who have woken up and remembered who they are, become aware of who they are. And it's that tipping point. It's about those people projecting their vision, their reality, and others who are not yet awake, picking up on that. So these people are, it's like if you put if you have a barrel full of, let's just say, red-coloured balls, and you put a blue one in, and then one of the red ones turns blue, and over a period of time, the colour change is perceptible. So the larger group begin to change its dynamic. And that's what's happening with the people over the earth who are imprinting, is a good word to use, values and ideals which force others to change. And I say force, they don't mean force as in force with a gun, but force, they'll look in themselves and they'll look to see what is around them and say, I choose not to do this, but I choose to do that. And that is what's happening. So in the mix, that's a very good word, we are in the mix. But people are doing a good job.